Hey, what's up guys? John here. We're witnessing the biggest power grab that we've ever seen in world history occur in California. California is now starting their own bank where they intend to purchase affordable housing units from landlords, right? Well, they're also putting in all these new policies in which is going to make their investment much better. They're going to be able to get better pricing on these buildings. They're going to be able to do this by stealing the property. Here's how this works. Here's what's going on. Here's what we know for sure. Right now, California is sitting on a $100 billion surplus. And in the state of California, through their own public bank, they would have access to fractional reserve lending, meaning just like a Chase Bank or a Merrill Lynch or Wells Fargo, they would be able to lend out 10 times deposits, meaning they have $100 billion in liquidity right now. They would have access to $1 trillion in cash. Gavin Newsom has publicly said that he has already purchased 6,000 apartments from mom and pop landlords. And right now they are looking to really get into affordable housing. But there's some really big concerns that I see as a whole here. The media pictures what they're doing as a great thing to help people get into affordable properties. However, what I see is a massive power grab, which is essentially turning people from everyday citizens being able to provide for themselves, being able to go out there and get a job. They may be struggling, many of them, but rather than doing that, the state is going to take over the property with their votes so that then they could be, housed by the state. Instead, what I think would make more sense is rather than building up the infrastructure and putting people in this position to be basically controlled by the state, why not just allow the state to give them a proper education? Allow them to get the right mentorship, the right guidance, help them in the right career path, do something to help so they have more tax revenue come in, and we have a system that operates with a bunch of people contributing and working together. But instead what they're doing is they're looking to draw down property values and build out a society of dependence. It's very, very concerning. Now, a couple things are happening. First, they have the eviction moratorium in Los Angeles until June of 2023. Now San Diego, and now they're bringing out their own eviction moratorium as of yesterday. And this new eviction moratorium says that if tenants have paid rent, but your landlord wants to increase rents or the landlord wants to move into the property or do anything like that, then there's all these new guidelines. This is in San Diego. This is interesting and fascinating to me because this is no longer about health. This is about what is right? And what is right can be defended on both sides, right? So the moral of the story is that we're moving in this direction where it's going to be harder to be a landlord in the state of California. But now they're proposing this new bill in Los Angeles that's very fascinating. Los Angeles doesn't need another tax hike. Reject United to House LA's proposal. United to House LA has turned 98,171 signatures to the Los Angeles City Clerk's office in an effort to qualify a ballot initiative that would impose a huge new tax on high-value real estate sales in Los Angeles and use the money to pay for homelessness and affordable housing programs. Any property value between $5 million and $10 million will be hit with a 4% transfer tax when sold. Properties valued over $10 million would be hit with a 5.5% tax. 5.5% tax, that's substantial. To put that into consideration, a $10 million property, $550,000 tax, right? A $10 million property or $5 million property, like you put these numbers in consideration when you factor in the real estate agent costs and transfer taxes and the traditional cost of sale. It's substantial. And this isn't just single family homes. The proponents, a coalition of labor unions and activist organizations advocating for tenants' rights, immigrants and homelessness service providers, call the proposal a mansion tax, but the measure is also a sharp tax increase on sales of multifamily housing, retail stores, office buildings, supermarkets, self-storage facilities, shopping malls, car dealerships, and any other property valued at above $5 million. The cost of buying these properties would be 4% to 5.5% higher if the measure qualifies for the November ballot and is approved by a majority of voters. So it's very smart what they're doing. So this is what's happening. They have their own bank. They're in the process of starting it, right? They're building out this entire divided society, blaming wealthy people and everyone else, right? And so what they're trying to do is take the wealth from the people that have it and redistribute it back to the state so that the state can then form their own solution. And that solution is not going to be any solution that's going to give the tenant or the general majority, the general public, any type of true equity and any type of real growth or equity. All they're really doing is just redistributing the wealth from the individual who has worked very hard, that car dealership owner, maybe started as a car salesman and bought their own car dealership, now they want to sell it, retire. That person, or the person that has an office building or a nice house, maybe they inherited a property. Take all the money from them, divide society, take all the money, and then redistribute it to the state. It's very fascinating because a lot of people won't see it that way. They may see it as, no, this is what we have to do to balance out society. But in reality, how does this really balance out society long term? How will the tenant benefit long term? The tenant will never get to a place of actually owning anything. The tenant will never get to a place of having true security. Although the state's constitution, specifically Proposition 13, requires local taxes for a special purpose to receive the approval of 2/3 of the voters in order to take effect, state courts have recently carved out a loophole by asserting that the tax increase proposed by a citizens' initiative is different than one proposed by a government body such as LA City Council and needs only one simple majority. The measure needs 61,076 valid signatures to qualify for the ballot. If certified by the city clerk, the city council has 20 days after certification to adopt the proposed ordinance without an election. Alternatively, the council could call a special election or request consolidation of the state's general election. Proponents may withdraw the petition at any time prior to certification by the city clerk. If the measure does make it to the ballot, voters should say no to this estimate of $875 million in annual tax increase on real estate sales, which would throw more money at the same failed policies, wasting billions of taxpayer dollars already. The cost of tax increases on commercial properties are borne by the tenants and customers who patronize those businesses. LA's cost of living is already too high, and raising it further is the wrong way to address poverty. Now, I agree with that, but some other very unique shifts and things we need to look at, as Gavin Newsom said about a year ago. He told all tenants that if you can't pay rent, don't worry, I'm going to pay for your rent. You have nothing to worry about. And a lot of tenants said, okay, I'm going to take your word on that. They stopped paying rent. Then what happened? Did Gavin Newsom fulfill on that obligation? The answer is no. Less than 8% of all back rent was actually fulfilled by the state, yet they're sitting on a $100 billion surplus. So the tenant was actually misled, misguided. The big question is, if this does in fact pass and these real estate property owners are taxed for doing business in the state, will the money actually ever flow to a tenant? Will the money actually ever flow to anyone outside of the state? It's a really big question. My answer is definitely not. My true belief is that it's going to start at $5 million. In Santa Monica, just last week, I did a video talking, it was at $8 million was the number. Now Los Angeles is $5 million. I said in that video, it's going to go to $1 million. It's going to just keep trickling down to where all properties, that's what they want. It's going to start high to where everyone's like, okay, $5 million, that's obscene. Who has that kind of money? Those people deserve to pay that type of tax. But over time, it's just going to trickle down to property owners, right? It's a big question. At what point do people say, enough is enough? Is this something that we really want? Is this something that actually benefits the overall population? I'll leave it up to you to decide. Drop it below. Let's talk about this. Hit the like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube's going to share this content. And let me know, would you buy a property in Los Angeles? To me, it's very interesting. It's very fascinating to where you would do a deal. Say, let's say, for example, I wanted to buy a home. I'm going to go buy a house in Los Angeles. It's $1 million, hypothetically. I purchase this property, understand, okay, I'm going to pay 1.25% in taxes. That's fine, $12,500 a year, about $1,000 a month. I'm going to pay that in taxes every single month. That's okay. I love Los Angeles. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then that's all. I pay this, pay that, pay that. I'm okay with all that. But then 5 years into ownership, they tell me, oh, by the way, you also have to pay $50,000 or $40,000 when you sell the property back to the city, right? Like all these different things. Is that ethical? Is that right? Drop your comments below. Let's talk about it. And also subscribe here. Also on my second channel, it's going to be an interactive show and podcast starting next week. And LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything is in the banner. I'll catch you guys later.